Kind of tell the audience what's this going to be about, when's it coming out, and what can they expect?
Well, Harvest House is publishing. It's kind of a compilation of some of the best messages at my conference we had in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Some of your listeners attended that or watched online. We put together about 15 of those messages. Jack Hibbs, my goodness, Ed Heinzen, Jeff Kinley, Barry Steig. And then we're carrying that conference activity into, again, suburban Minneapolis. Now I'm working with Mark Hendry and brought you in a winter or two. Of course, we have to bring you in the winter. That's mandatory.
Thank you.
And make you suffer for Jesus, because we suffer for Jesus about 6 months out of the year. If you can do it for 2 days, you higher level in heaven for you. So anyway, the book is When Jesus Returns, and they can pre-order on Amazon. We're going to have it available mid-November, olivetreeviews.org, and I think it'll be a blessing, and thank you for letting me say something.
No, I'm glad you're putting that out, because I think what's lacking out there is I'm talking to a lot of Christians. They don't have people saying, hey, what's going on here? And you bringing that out to people, help people connect dots. And so, no, it's vital, because they're not getting it from their pastor, that's for sure.
And I mean, that's a whole program in itself, Brandon. And I think you and I have talked before about it. And it's almost the tragedy of our generation in the church. And for some reason, the message that's almost most important right now is really marginalized or laughed at or misinterpreted. And there's no such thing as a millennium, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing about that, Jen. You can weigh in on it. We have the most information available to us because of the internet, and yet they won't avail themselves to this. And then you get the pushback. Well, you guys are tinfoil hat brigades. You guys are conspiracy theorists. But Jen, some of the stuff you and I have been talking about for years. It's not a conspiracy theory. They're saying it. They tell us they want a one-world government. They tell us they hate Israel and they want to wipe them out.
They tell us they want a cashless society. They tell us they'd really like a single leader to rule over the world because our individual governments are so ineffective, and they are. They've pre-announced all their dirty deeds. And if we talk about it, it's conspiracy or it's fiction. It's reality. And somebody's got to talk about it. I think that's kind of what you and I anyway, are commissioned to do. And I'm honored to do it. There's a price to pay, but that's okay.
No, and you have been paying the price for sticking your neck out, because some of these subjects the pastors don't want to address, and you probably have a good hunch why. Because it puts them on the chopping block with their constituents in their congregation. Because look, when you got to raise the issue of, hey man, grooming children in public school is not okay, you might upset a few people apparently. And now I think we're entering a time where you have the sin of silence being committed in the pulpits, and so now voices like you. Resonate even more now, because there's so few of us saying anything. And I guess my question to you is, did you think it would look like this? Did you think that the church would fail this bad at things?
Well, the Bible certainly attributes a lot of passages to an end-time type of delusion, deception, falling away, heed to sound doctrine. But did I think that would kind of extend over into silence about the fact that the king is coming and we're running out of time, and there's going to be a lot of people, left behind, going through an ordeal that it's going to shock them out of their mind? Because, we tried to warn, but we just need a whole lot more watchmen on the wall, and we need a whole lot more people who are willing to give up what is going to, maybe your reputation. Life might not be comfortable if you become a watchman on the wall, like you and I are trying to do anyway.
Yeah.
But, and we have the advantage right now, Brent. Again, we've got I mean, let's make big tech work for us. And
Yes.
in the proper setting, big tech will work for us. I mean, maybe we're going to use a few code words now and then, but by and large, we're getting a terribly important message out to a remnant of people who want to hear, and to a remnant of people who even understand what we're talking about. Because again, many churches, not all, many churches are leading folks astray, and particularly when it comes to, what's known as eschatology. Again, most churches don't take it literally. Most churches don't believe in a rapture. Most churches might believe in a second coming at best. And most churches think you and I are crazy.
Right. And this, I want to segue then from that, because one of the big ticket items obviously is Israel and the Jewish people, and that's obviously God's timepiece, and you know that, I know that, or a lot of our audience knows that. And we've been watching certain things develop in Israel, obviously in the last year, October 7th, and now, the whole thing with Hamas, and now Hezbollah and all that. But Jenna, you wrote an interesting article that brought something out that perplexes me, and I think perplexes a lot of people. We've been watching our culture become hostile to the Jews. We've watched our college campuses go anti-Semitic, root for Hamas.
Yeah, cheering for Hamas.
Cheering for Hamas, which I cannot believe. And we've seen this movement of anti-Semitism on a global scale. But yet, and you address this in your article, I can't understand why Jewish people would vote for the people who hate them. and so you wrote on that. Can you kind of explain to us the dilemma? And I've heard this on a political level. Why do the Jews vote for people that can't stand them?
Well, they're deluded and deceived in thinking that, number one, the Jewish people have been, let's just say, raised to be in favor of and supportive of and helping the so-called underdog, the marginalized, the oppressed.
Yeah.
This is because Jews have been marginalized and oppressed. So they have been taught, we're not going to stand by and watch anybody else ever be marginalized or oppressed. Yeah. And therefore, and this is the big assumption, the Democrat Party is all about the marginalized, and the Democrat Party is all about themselves and power and control and crushing all people under them. Some Jews are getting their eyes open. I came across an article, I think I even posted it on my website and then perhaps linked in the article we're talking about. The Jews of Pennsylvania could determine this entire election, and that is if it's very close. If it's very close, because the Jews of Pennsylvania are leaving the Democrat Party and they're moving over to Donald Trump. Now, as I say that, some people will think that's just not humanly possible, but it is possible, and it is happening, and that's an article that was a very legit article, and it totally explained why.
Well, the interesting thing, and I'm glad to hear that some people are waking up.
Yes.
But explain this to me, because there are people like Bernie Sanders or George Soros and I don't know how to describe it, but they're Jewish people, but they're anti-Israel. And I don't know how to conceptualize that. Why would Bernie Sanders just came out a few days ago and says, well, we got to get Kamala in there because she'll cut off basically all the aid and weapons to Israel and force them to do a ceasefire. And I'm like, this guy's out of his mind, but yet he's Jewish, Jan.
No, but their Jewishness means nothing. It's an inconvenience, believe me. It's a total inconvenience. Their liberalism / socialism / Marxism is far, far more important to them than any kind of spirituality. These are godless men. He named Soros, he mentioned Sanders. Yeah. They're very godless men. They're power hungry, they're money hungry. And that's what interests them and concerns them, and selling out everything to their whatever socialism, Marxism. So these political movements trump any kind of faith whatsoever, Judaism, etc. Okay. So, I mean, it's tragic, but it is the way it is, right? And I think it's all comes under the title deception and delusion. And I think that, remember, who plays the biggest role in the tribulation? The Jews.
That's right.
And the Jews are going to fall for the consummate deceiver. They're going to fall for the Antichrist, and they're going to fall for his lies, and they're going to fall for his deception. And the tribulation is really about the salvation of the Jewish nation.
That's right.
The tribulation's not for the church, not for believers. It's really for the Jews. They are coming into the very end of days in a state of spiritual emptiness. Not all. I mean, I work with Chosen People Ministries and others, and many are coming to faith.
Yeah.
But by and large, including the few representatives in my family, are so spiritually blind, it's just shocking. But it's a setup for this end-time man with a plan that they're going to cave to.
Yeah.
Those left behind, they're going to cave to him. He's going to offer security. He's going to offer assurance. He's going to offer friendship. They're going to fall for it at that time, but I think it's a setup now.
So you mentioned setup. So let me ask you this. Do you think the current worldwide anti-Semitism plays into that and basically pushes them into the hands of the Antichrist?
Absolutely. And I mean, even October 7th did. And I mean, again, October 7th was a wake-up call. This is why, I mean, if I can sum it up in a sentence, October 7th is really why I just referenced the Jews of Pennsylvania are moving in their way of thinking. They're moving from very liberal to much more conservative, which then will make them more open to the gospel, which is what's really important in our discussion. But the point is, yes, they got a wake-up call a little over a year ago. They realized the world, since then, we already referenced it, is cheering for Hamas. Okay, they're not singing the Israeli national anthem, okay?
Right.
If there was a national anthem for Hamas, the world would be, yay, let's all sing together in unison.
Right.
Sad, but true.
Yes.
And I think that this fits into the end-time anti-Semitic scenario that's setting the Jews up to receive the Antichrist and to move into that tribulation period. For the believer, most are watching this. Our believers, I think that means our time is really short.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to pick your brain about then, and I might do it after this break we're coming up to, but what I want to talk about, Jan, is how the United States figures into dealing with Israel. We got an election coming up right around the corner, and how this election is going to impact Israel. And I want you to talk about that after the break and look at not only from a geopolitical level, but from a prophetic perspective as well. So, guys, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with Jan right after these important messages. We'll see you right after that. Hey, everybody. Here at Tip of the Spear Ministries, we are on the front lines of the spiritual battle. Unfortunately, there are forces on the internet, dark forces, that seek to silence us and suppress our message of truth. You know what I'm talking about without me even naming them. These satanic forces want to censor us, but with your help, we can push back. We need you to be a part of our mission. Help us spread the truth by liking our videos, subscribing to our channel, and sharing our content with those who need to hear it. With every click, with every share, with every subscription, it strengthens our ability to shine the light in these dark days. And as you know, we are living in the last days. We see the issues that are going on in Israel. We see the issues that are going on with the formation of a one world government. We see the formation of a digital currency. We see the horror of Babylon. The signs are everywhere. But there is hope, and there is a message for those who are watching. And so we want to make sure that we get our weekly prophecy updates out. We want to make sure we get our in-depth interviews out. We want to make sure our Bible studies get out and our sermons get out to help prepare not only believers, but to alert unbelievers. But we can't do it alone. We need your help in this battle. We need a pushback, and you make the difference. I know it sounds simple, but liking and subscribing and sharing our videos, is how to make an impact so we can expose the signs of the times and proclaim the truth of Jesus Christ in these last days. So thanks for standing with us, and let's all do our part. All right, guys, we are back, and we are with Jan Markell of Olive Tree Ministries, and we were talking about the way people vote, Jewish people vote, but then we segued into what's getting ready to happen in America this next election. This is a big election, Jan. I think it's beyond Republican and Democrat now. I think it's an election good versus evil. But how does this play into Israel, and how this election will affect Israel, in your opinion?
Well, I do believe Donald Trump is a friend of Israel. Now, having said that, am I wild about all of his policies, these Abraham Accords?
Right.
I mean, I think at the heart of that might be a two-state solution.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not sure what he understands, I'm not sure what he understands biblically. He's been told the biblical truth. There are many who've told him. Yeah. How much he's comprehending, I don't know that we'll know. But in a sentence or two, he's a friend of Israel. He's trying to do right by Israel. He's a friend of Netanyahu. And I don't think Donald Trump would ever willingly, knowingly do something terribly evil to that country. I do believe the other side of the aisle is planning some terrible, terrible things to perpetrate on Israel. And I'm just being blunt. For one thing, Kamala Harris doesn't understand foreign policy. My cats understand it better than she does.
That's right.
I'm just saying, there's no comprehension of complicated foreign policy by Kamala Harris. It would become a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, there'd be a major Middle East war, if not worse than that, within a year. And I think there are some on the left who know this, and that's another reason they're running in the other direction, because at this point in time, the whole world heading into either a Middle East or regional or world war, obviously not good for society. So
right.
I think they're scared. They should be. They should be scared. They should be.
Yeah. So you mentioned something in your article, a second article I want to reference, but in regards to America, and obviously this plays into how it affects Israel. But this article, do we have enough time to make America great again? I'm hoping Donald Trump gets in there because, I don't agree with the Abrahamic Accords because it created a two-state solution, which is wrong and divides up the land. But you're right. I mean, if I'm going to take the lesser of the two evils, Donald Trump is more pro-Israel than Kamala, and no doubt about that. But let me ask your opinion. The way we've been traveling, and according to your article, I mean, as far as we're going down some deep rabbit holes as far as sin is concerned. We're grooming children, sacrificing babies. We've become anti-Israel. All this stuff. Is this redeemable? Is this something that God says, okay, I'm going to give you a second chance. I'm going to let Donald Trump come in there and give you a reprieve and maybe, like you say, slow down the decay, delay the decay. Is that even possible with all the stuff that's happening?
I think it's $1 million question. I really do. I talked with Pastor Gary Hamrick about it on air recently. That program's due to air here very soon. And he and I concluded on air that we're not going to be given, we're not going to be given an opportunity to make America great again if we're going to continue to shake our fists at God. Mm-hmm. You can't, and you already outlined the issues. And we probably could add 20 issues to what you just referenced. As long as we're going to be the number one in, I believe it's sex trafficking of children, is God going to bless this nation? Now we've got good, righteous people pushing back against, praying against us, intervening, trying to rescue, etc. So does that compensate for the evil? I don't know the mind of God, but I just fear that as long as a nation it appears. And maybe that's because the left is in power. And maybe if we dethrone the left, maybe that's suggesting that all Republicans are righteous. Not true.
Right.
It's not true.
Right.
But I think there'll be a little bit more righteousness. But I just think we got to have limited expectations, because right now we're an enemy of God as a nation. Not you and I, not believers, of course not, but as a nation. As a nation, we're going so far left. We're becoming an enemy of God. And is He going to say, "Well, I really appreciate that, guys. I'm going to give you another reprieve"? Maybe He's all loving and all forgiving, and maybe He will, and maybe He won't.
Yeah. No, and you're totally right. I don't think God owes America anything after what we've done. And I think, the only saving grace in all this, and you can weigh in on this, I liken it to, when God took Abraham, and He was talking to Abraham before He was going to go and destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And you had that whole dialogue with Abraham and the Lord. Would you destroy it for 50, 40, 30, 20, down to 10? And I see that sometimes as a parallel with the rapture, is that He wouldn't destroy Sodom until He removed those 10 people out of Sodom. And I think sometimes the only saving grace I see is that the remnant is still here.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm not saying that's going to make America great again, but before we totally go off the cliff, it seems that because the remnant is here, it seems that seems to be the preservative element in America.
Yeah.
What do you think?
We are the preservative element in America, and thank God for that. But having said that, Brandon, can you imagine the chaos when we're gone?
Oh, man.
And any of us who are leaving anyone behind, and I know it's sobering. But the world is gonna look like North Carolina, and the sin is gonna. We're the stabilizing element, the church, the believers, the stabilizing element, certainly in America, and I think in the world. And then when we're gone, it's like all hell literally breaks loose.
Yeah.
And to be honest, just between you and me, and don't tell anybody, it breaks my heart. I'm in tears over it a lot of times. I really am.
You're absolutely right. I think there's a bittersweet aspect that I take from it. You know how John was asked to eat the scroll, and it was bittersweet, and it's sweet because we're going to see Jesus soon, but the bitterness is watching our whole society decay in front of us. And here's another thing I want you to speak to. This is, okay, so we know the prophetic scenario is heading in a certain direction. What I have noticed is, and maybe you can speak to this, there have been people that say, okay, it's going to Hades in a handbasket, Brandon. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to check out from the culture. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to be involved anymore because I can't stop the train. It's going over the cliff. And so I'm going to put on the white sheet and sit on the rooftop and wait for Jesus to come back. So can you help me and help some of us in the remnant that they're trying to convince people, don't do that?
To me, what you just raised, and I think it's good you did. It's such a mystery, and I've talked about it heavily on air. But too many people are checking out I wish I could sit down with every single American who simply, I'm not going to vote. Both candidates are terrible. The election is rigged. Well, there may be a little bit of truth to some of those points, but we could have spared ourselves absolute misery from some recent years here if every evangelical would have gone out and voted in 2020. 40 million didn't. And that's why we've got the mess that we're in now. And if you think it's a mess now, just wait until it goes in the wrong direction here in a very short time. If you think we're in a mess, you haven't seen anything yet. And again, maybe this is judgment. I do not know the mind of God, or maybe He's going to offer a reprieve. If there's a reprieve, Brandon, it's only to get the gospel out while there's time. It's not because we're being rewarded for being righteous people. We're not. But it's to get the gospel out to the final remnant who hopefully will respond. That's the only reason we get a delay. Only reason.
You're absolutely right, and so I've talked to Jack Hibbs about this, and he was echoing the same thing you are. Is look, hey, just because we know it's going in a certain direction doesn't mean I stop being the preservative element
Exactly.
Of society. I mean, the Holy Spirit restraining evil through the church. And it seems like people are abdicating their responsibility. And Jack put it this way, and maybe you could agree with him. He said it's kind of like the guy in the parable of the talents. You have the ability to vote and do something, but yet you are not going to vote, and you're going to go and bury your talent.
Yeah.
And he goes, that he's basically said that's what I equate that to, and you're basically throwing up the white flag and surrendering. I don't know how you see it, but I get it. We're not voting for a pastor.
Yeah.
It's kind of the lesser of the evils, and you're totally right. We're trying to buy ourselves some time to do the Lord's work.
If this goes the wrong way, Brandon, you and I won't be able to be doing this in a year.
Exactly.
You and I may be, cellmates somewhere, and I'm not being dramatic here. I'm not. You and I will be shut down in a heartbeat. You and I will no longer have the freedom to be sharing, certainly as we're doing now, but it could go for even way beyond that to churches being affected, to every individual Christian being affected. If anybody saw, and I think some of your listeners saw, I'm just going to be blunt here.
Go ahead.
A Kamala Harris rally here in the last week or so, where somebody called out Jesus is Lord. Mm-hmm. And her response to that was basically, I'm paraphrasing, was basically, shut up.
Yeah.
Why don't you go to the meeting down the street, because we don't want to hear that here.
Right.
And remember, in 2012, I'm going to be blunt again, it's a Democratic Party who literally threw God out of their platform and Jerusalem in 2012. And they took a vote, and they took the vote 3 times. And in that vote that they took 3 times, it's, do you want God in this platform? And 3 times that party yelled no. Well, now we're down to another election and another leftist candidate who's it's not going to be kind to the kind of work you and I do, Brandon.
No, and I've been watching what the globalist elite have been doing, and you have too. And the first thing they want to do is censor free speech.
Yes.
And people think, well, we got the Constitution that's going to protect us. But, Jen, you've been watching what's happening in the UK. They're putting people in jail for 3 years, 20 months for posting stuff on their Twitter account or their social media, and they think, well, that's not going to come to America. That's what will happen if Kamala gets in there.
It's a worst case scenario, and I just cannot be blunt enough. And again, my estimate, or I haven't come up with the amount or the number, but I'm told another 40 million. I'm talking evangelicals. Another 40 million are going to stay home election night, and who knows, I don't know, whatever TV program they're watching. Is more important than helping to determine the outcome of the country and your future and my future and the future of your ministry and my ministry, which is on the chopping block as I speak. Because of leftist leadership, leftist lunacy leadership that hates you and hates me and hates everyone listening to this program. Yeah. So we are coming down to crunch time in America and the world. And remember, when we go haywire, the whole world goes haywire. So
that's right.
It's one thing we want to save. We want to preserve balance in the world until the Lord blows that trumpet and we're called out of here. We've got to be the stabilizing influence until that happens.
Absolutely. A mutual friend that we had was Phil Haney.
Yes.
And you remember Phil, and he was suicided by the deep state, I believe.
Except he wasn't.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And Phil, he had actually been in your area in Minnesota, and he was telling me a story that he was working for the Republicans at the time, fighting against Ilhan Omar getting into her seat. And Phil was doing everything he could, and they were trying to get people out to vote and stuff like that. And obviously, Ilhan Omar got in there, and she's been in there ever since. Phil told me a curious thing, and I don't know if he mentioned this to you, but he said this, Brandon, he goes, do you think that Ilhan Omar, or she basically said, how do you think she got in there? And I said, well, I'm assuming it's the Somalis who voted for her, and they got her in there. He goes, the Somalis did vote for her, but that's not what got her in there. Yeah. What got her in there was 35,000 evangelicals who didn't vote in that election.
Exactly.
And I said, are you kidding me, Phil? Yeah. And that I use as an illustration constantly to show, hey man, if you don't want these Israel-hating, anti-Semitic individuals, these Muslims in your offices, or you don't want crazy California, then sit back and let this happen. But like Phil was saying, he goes, Brandon, if half of the evangelicals would have went and voted, Ilhan Omar would have never got in.
No, it's Phil, and I heard Phil say that, and he's absolutely dead right on. And look, Minnesota is not a bastion of evangelicalism. It's just not. I thank God for the few solid, and I emphasize few, solid churches in the Minnesota Twin Cities area, but he's absolutely dead right, and I think apathy reigns. And folks, there are consequences when we let apathy reign and we don't say, you know what, I'm going to try to make a difference here, and I'm going to try to turn the tide and stop the evil. If there's one reason we're on earth, it's to push back against the darkness. You're trying to do it, Brandon. I'm trying to do it. Phil Haney was trying to do it in his way. So, and he was taken out, and I think he was taken out, and you and I had lunch with him 3 weeks before he was taken out.
That's right.
So anyway, not every listener is called to be a Phil Haney, and thank God for that.
Sure.
But the least we can do is take an interest in how this country goes down a path politically. And I know it's not perfect, and I know candidates on the right aren't perfect, and I know a certain party that we are more leaning towards is not perfect.
Right.
And when we watch the comments under this video, whenever it's posted, there'll be plenty of people hollering at you and me just for trying to take the stand that we're taking. And for 100 reasons, we've already talked about them.
You're absolutely right. So, hey, I need to take a break, but here's what I want to do after the break. I want to talk about we got one of the biggest elections coming up in the United States. I think it's a good versus evil. I want you to weigh in on the implications of some of the things we might see with this election. I mean, do we expect them to cheat? Do we expect riots to happen if let's say Trump gets in there? What is your opinion on that? Because a lot of people are saying, Brandon, what we see happening is we have a cold civil war happening in the West, in the United States, and any which way this goes could tip something off. I want to get your opinion about that when we get back from the break and have you weigh in on that. So we'll be right back after these important messages. Hello, Rock Harbor family and Rock Harbor Online family, because many of you watch us online from different parts of the world. And as you know, we've been steadfast in supporting Israel during these challenging times since October 7th and the continued war in Gaza with Hamas, and now the future aspect of the Hezbollah war and possibly a war with Iran. And we're going to continue to stand with Israel and support Israel. And your generosity in donating to help Israel has been a testament to your commitment as a Bible-believing Christian who loves Israel. You are few and far between. We are finding the lack of support throughout Christendom in the West for Israel, which is an alarming thing for us to see. As you know, Genesis 12:3 reminds us, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. So as you know, it is our duty and our honor to stand with Israel, especially in their times of need, and we're going to continue to do so. Your donations have made a significant impact in providing much-needed support and encouragement for the Jewish people. As you know, we are supporting the IDF with their needs. We are supporting the IDF families with their needs. We are supporting Messianic believers and their needs in Israel, and their organizations, their Messianic organizations that need help as well. But I also want to take a moment to reflect on another important aspect, which is our own church, Rock Harbor. As you know, Rock Harbor is the fountainhead that enables us to extend our love and support beyond the walls of Rock Harbor to Israel. And while it's crucial to help Israel, we must also ensure that our church's needs are being met. For some time now, about 85% of our offerings have been diverted from the church to Bless Israel Fund. And that's fine and everything, and we understand there are needs, but this has an economic impact on our ability as a church to accomplish the ministry needs here, not only locally, but those abroad, like helping Israel and other ministry projects. When we're strong here locally, then we can be more active and effective in helping other ministries, including helping Israel. So in your giving, please understand it's not an either-or situation, but a both-and scenario. By supporting Rock Harbor Church, you're not just helping our church, you're helping also to create a stronger financial base so that we can help outside ministries and the nation of Israel. Therefore, you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, because that hurts us as a church in the long run. I understand this is going to happen at times when there's a pressing need, but it's unsustainable in the long term. Locally, we need to expand our local ministry to establish a Christian school, add more Bible study classrooms to our campus for our growing population of kids and adults. We believe in Holy Spirit-led giving. But keep in mind that the Holy Spirit will not direct you to help other causes or needs or ministries or people, or even Israel for that matter, at the expense of hurting the local ministry that's enabling that ministry to happen. So follow the Lord's lead in your giving, and let's continue to not only support Israel, but let's remember that we need to pay the electric bill here at home and to make sure that the lights stay on at home. And so we want to make sure we cover our base of operation, and then we support Israel as well. So thank you for your unwavering support, because it allows us to be a light to the world and to bless Israel. All right, guys, we are back, and we are back with Jan Markell. And Jan, before the break, we were going to talk about the implications of this major election that's getting ready to happen in the United States. And like I've said before, I think it's a battle between good and evil. But Jan, let me get your opinion. What do you think the implications are from what's going to happen in this election? Because we've already seen 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump, and people trying to prevent him from getting into the presidency. We've had people just go crazy and do all kinds of lawfare against him to prevent him from running as president. But here we are, and we're a week away, really, from a huge potential explosion to happen.
What can we do? What would be the bottom line that you're asking?
I think, what should we expect to see? It seems to me that the globalists, the elites, definitely don't want Donald Trump to mess up.
Absolutely, they're almost out of their minds. Yes. Yeah,
and so I guess what I'm saying is, let's pretend the scenario that he does win. Okay, that he gets so many votes that he actually gets more votes than what they're going to cheat with, because I think thoroughly they're going to cheat again. But he outdoes that. I have seen them over this last year or last few years do everything they can to stop him from getting in. And it's really not about Trump, it's what he represents.
Yes,
he represents
exactly.
a monkey wrench into their plans.
Exactly. That's very well put.
I'm trying to figure out, what lengths do you think they would go to stop him if he does win? What would they do? Will we see riots? What could we expect to see on the streets?
Well, I don't think they're going to stop trying to prevent him. And again, it may be violent again. Why would they stop at 2 and 3 and 4 attempts? I mean, there certainly could be more. My understanding is he's concerned, I'll just be blunt, he's concerned about his plane being shot out of the sky.
Yeah.
I think that's a very valid concern. because there's easy ways of doing that today. I'm sorry we have to talk this way.
Yes.
I never thought we would. But I'm concerned that the one worlders and those in Washington who are determined not to let freedom ring, they have some terrible evil scheming going on. But, ultimately, God's going to decide all this. And I do think Christians praying makes a huge difference, and I think we need to emphasize that. Brandon, we don't want to make it sound like everything's lost and everything's out of control, because God allowed the nation of America to come into existence for a reason.
Yeah.
We have wonderfully got the gospel around the world. We have been Israel's best friend since 1948.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Franklin Roosevelt left office. He passed away. Thankfully, Harry Truman was, believe it or not, the Democrat was a different party back then, who got in and said, we're going to create this independent nation of Israel. That's America.
Yeah.
And that's been our position since 1948 up until Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and some others in there that have pushed back like heck. So all I'm saying is America's been called for a reason.
Yeah.
America's on the scene here for such a time as this. And who's going to be the standard bearer? And you and I, the believers, everyone listening to this program, those following your ministry, my ministry, radio, etc., they can make they are here for such a, if I can just put it in a sentence, everyone is here for such a time as this. God called you to this crazy generation, as uncomfortable as it is. You're called for such a time as this to do whatever your gifting is while there's time, and folks, we're running out of time. We're really, really running out of time.
I don't know how you saw this, but looking at those 2 assassination attempts by Donald Trump, I'm not trying to over-spiritualize it or anything like saying he's the savior or anything like that. But my takeaway, and maybe I can get your opinion about this, that bullet, that first time, missed him by millimeters. I mean, if he hadn't turned his head the right way, that was it. And half of America would have lost their candidate running for president, and they would have been disenfranchised. And then you got the guy at the golf course who was set up 12 hours before, Secret Service saying this was a last-minute thing he decided to do, but yet the guy's camped out there for 12 hours. Go figure. So it seems that, something's brewing there, but yet it didn't happen. And I can't help but think that there's some glimmer, a sliver of hope there of God saying, hey, America, I didn't allow him to get killed twice now.
Twice, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a message to America. I don't know. I don't want to over-spiritualize it, but when you see a guy survive 2 assassination attempts and survive 93 indictments.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And the guy is still like running for president, and he's not in jail or anything like that. I sometimes think maybe God is saying, hey, America, hey, Christians, I'm going to give you a glimmer of hope, a chance maybe, that buys you a little bit more time. And that's where, I don't know. I don't know what your opinion would be on that, but...
Well, Brandon, it would buy Israel some time, too.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is really important at this time in history when her safety and all that is totally at stake. Look, as we speak, she's got wars all over Gaza, Hezbollah. But there are other fronts of this war. My goodness, you've got conflict in Judea and Samaria. You've got Iran. Iran is threatening to nuke Israel, for Pete's sake. So all I'm saying is, as long as America is strong and pro-Israel, Israel's going to be pretty safe. Now, at the same time, maybe God is saying, okay, Israel, we're winding down. You're going to have to turn to me for your safety and your protection here. At Gog and Magog, that's what happens, is Israel turns to God and says, help defend us, and he does. And so we're leading to that clearly. Mm-hmm. But if America's neutralized, as Israel's been marginalized now for almost 4 years, if for no other reason than that, if we believe Genesis 12:3, then we got to think seriously about a candidate who is pro-Israel, not perfect. No one's saying Donald Trump is a righteous, godly man. We know that's not true. But when his policies are more pro-Israel than anti-Israel and more pro-faith and pro-church than another party, I just think we've got to look really carefully, and we've got to go vote. There are thousands listening right now who, I'm not going to vote, I don't have time, or whatever. Please, change your mind, okay?
Yeah, please. Because, and you're hitting the nail on the head about Israel, because what we understand about Israel is Israel gets its weapons from the United States.
Exactly.
Iron Dome. That is American missiles in Iron Dome.
Exactly.
And we see it at work every day. But they get the missiles from us. And perhaps, God is going to extend some grace to America because of that protection that Israel needs. Because what I read, and I don't know about you, is I read that Israel, because of that lack of munitions and bunker buster bombs that they don't have, they need them to fight an extended war against Hezbollah and Iran. And that can only happen if the United States helps them. And so maybe we're seeing something there develop and God preserved the United States just for simply that reason. I don't know.
Absolutely. I think you're dead right on. Absolutely. We have been a blessed nation because we have stood by that nation the size of New Jersey for 75 or 6 years now. Loyally, we've supplied her with, as you said, the weaponry, Iron Dome, intelligence we've provided her with.
Yes.
Now we've got an administration that's tipping off Iran.
I know.
Not tipping off Israel. It's informing Iran, hey, Israel's going to strike you. You better listen up.
Crazy.
So we're informing Israel's bitter enemy. And you think God is... I'm sorry. Again, I'm concerned with the Genesis 12:3 cursing, and I just don't want that to happen to be our election. But at the same time, maybe God's saying enough's enough. I don't know.
So we've talked about the bitter. Let's talk about the sweet aspect of this as we wrap things up. As a believer, we're supposed to have hope. We have hope in a future. We have hope in what the Lord's doing. How do we balance this out, Jen? Because we're talking about very dark things, and man, it can be a drag, no doubt about that. And sometimes I have to disconnect from the news because it's very heavy to see all this negative. Speak to the believers out there that feel the same thing you and I. They see the same thing. We see the cultural decline into hell, basically. But where is that sweetness at? Where do they find that at?
Well, I hope they're reading their Bible because that's one area. I think secondarily to that, Brandon, and their church, of course, is, if I can just be blunt here, is following ministries like yours or like mine. I mean, not because we have all the answers, but because I think we're trying to give a biblical perspective on what's going on, and we're trying to shed light on things that obviously the traditional media will never go near. And I think you and I and some other ministries, Amir and Jack, and there's just so many that are doing such a wonderful job of apprising and informing, encouraging, and being an inspiration at the same time. So I'm just thankful that we can do this. I'm thankful we can tap into big tech and do this.
Yeah.
I'm thankful when they don't shut down and when they allow some of this free speech to happen. So I just think that we're in the most stunning generation ever. We're in the generation the prophets of old longed to see. That's what they said. They longed to be in our generation, tough as it is. So we just have a huge responsibility to get the truth out. But I think more than anything, Brandon, is to get the gospel out, to talk about salvation, to talk about that we're running out of time, and to talk about, do you know the Lord Jesus personally? Because if you don't, you're going to have to face an ordeal that is unspeakable and that we have no words to describe. And that, like I say, brings me to tears when I think of the people who will be left behind. And the name of Jesus, calling on his name, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, amen. Can you give another plug for your book that's coming out? If people caught us late on the broadcast, can you explain when that's coming out and the topics involved?
Yeah, and they can see it right over my shoulder over here. I'm not very good with wherever, but anyway, When Jesus Returns. Harvest House is publishing it. It's out November 12th. OliveTreeReviews.org. We might have the price a little bit lower. It's on Amazon. You can pre-order right now. And it's a compilation of the best Look, it's hard to pick 15 messages out of about 60, 70 messages over 16, 17 years of my conference activity. We tried to condense them down. And Amir Sarfati has the foreword to the book.
Okay.
And then the best messages from those conference activities. And again, all of them are emphasizing the lateness of the hour and the fact that Jesus is coming again. It'll be very uplifting.
Yeah, I can't wait till it comes out. So, guys, make sure you pick up that book for your library, or give it away as a gift to inform people of that. Jan, I just want to thank you because you're a pioneer for all of us. I'm following your lead as you're a trailblazer, man. You're the pioneer that's went down this path, and so some of us are following in your footsteps.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for all the work you're doing, because I will say this, everywhere I go, your name comes up.
I'm sorry, Brandon.
Yeah,
I didn't plan it that way.
No, it's a good thing. They always say, hey, I heard you on Jan, and you're always coming up in the comment. I don't care if I just got back from Turkey and Greece, and of course the people there were saying, I heard you on Jan Markell's program.
Okay, well, praise the Lord for that.
The Lord has used you in an unbelievable way, and you'll probably not see all the people that you've touched until we get to heaven. But
I hope it's soon.
Yeah, so do I. But anyway, thank you for all that you've done, and guys, make sure you tap into Jan Markell's ministry. She's great. You're going to love her if you haven't come in contact with her ministry.